Welcome to Uncaged, the show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today, we're speaking with Sandrine Miller-Montgomery. Hey, Sandrine, how are you?
I'm good, Van. How are you?
I am well. I'm excited to catch up with you, learn a little bit more about what you're working on right now. Sandrine is the president and CEO at Micronoma. They are an early cancer detection system using microbiome-driven liquid biopsies. It's a really interesting, promising area, and so we'll go through that in a second. But before we get there, Sandrine, tell us a little bit about yourself and your career.
Well, as you will hear, I have an accent, and it's very French. So I'm from France. I moved in the States about 23 years ago now, and did my entire career here. Super enjoying it. I'm a PharmD PhD by training, and I started my career in industry as in the research side. And at some point, about 20 years ago, I migrated into the dark side of business. Loved it. It's very comfy there, very dynamic environment. And that's where I stayed to these days along my career.
Well, I mean, it's great to hear certainly that lovely research bite background. I'm sorry that you switched to the dark side, but no, I love that description. But I mean, Sandrine, you and the team are doing some really promising stuff in this microbiome-driven liquid biopsy space for cancer. Tell us a little bit more about what the team in Micronoma is up to and the story.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are up to what many people are trying to solve. You know, it's saving life. You go in science because you want to save life, or understand life better at the same time. And so one of the big killer we all know is cancer. And a lot of cancer, unfortunately, are very deadly, but they wouldn't be that deadly if we can find them in the very early stage. So the team decided to find a specific biomarkers that would help detect cancer in the early stage. Other people have done that in the past, but they are very human-centric. Surprise, surprise, human are human-centric. So when we get at it on the biology side, well, we tend to look at the human genes or the cancer genes that are in the human. But myself and my two co-founders, we come from the domain of microbiome. So microbiome is a study of community of microbes, not just microbes in isolation, not one bad bacteria or one bad viruses, but really how these bacteria interact with each other. And that interaction and that community that's created is something we studied in the past within the environment, within our food, within our gut. But about around 2017, 2018, the team decided to look at it on the cancer side. And we started by looking at something that was a little bit controversial in the broad audience, which is, well, let's look at microbiome in tissues, in our organs. And at the time, most of the thinking was just, no, there is no microbes in your organs unless you have an infection. And the long story short is that, well, that dogma was wrong. There is microbes in our organs, and it was starting to emerge. And even when it comes to cancer, you probably have heard about HPV and associated with cervical cancer, or Helicobacter pylori associated with stomach cancer. So people were starting to think about it, but that was kind of the exception. And we brought to the forefront that no, it's not the exception. All of our organs have a microbiome population. We went deeper into that, meaning within an organs, we realized that the cancer tissue in the organ has a microbiome population, which is different from the healthy tissue in the same organs. And then because we wanted to do early cancer detection, the natural next step was to go away from just looking at the tissue, because if you look at the tissue, you need to do a tissue biopsy. This is kind of late in the process of the diagnostic stage. So we started looking in the blood and thinking, much like other people before us, I'd look at liquid biopsy, looking for the genes, the human genes or the cancer genes that are coming from the cancer and are with the cellular turnover going into the blood. We decided that, well, maybe these microbes that we find in the tissue goes into the blood. And the answer was yes. And with a lot of machine learning and artificial intelligence, we are able to, based on the pattern of microbes we find circulating in the blood of someone, we can figure out what kind of cancer they may be affected of, or fortunately, what they may not be affected with.
Wow, that's really interesting. Now, I mean, Micronoma, who do you actually work with? Are you working with the doctors or the hospitals or directly with customers? How do you guys function?
So our customers, as we are going to name them here, are multiple, but there is one customer that we are not going to tackle. It's a patient. We are not going through the patient directly. We are not what we call a direct to customer. We really, it's cancer we are talking about. It's a serious thing. And if you turn out to be positive, we want the patient to have the support ready from their clinicians. So this is a test that only clinician will be allowed to prescribe to order for their patient when it's needed. So in that sense, the clinician is going to be our main customer. Right. They are the one we need to convince that our science is sound and that our assay is performing as they expect and need to be able to diagnose their patient.
So tell me a little bit, Sandrine. I mean, it's certainly a breakthrough area. It's expanding. Where are we right now in the process? Are you finding that some of these clinics are embracing this? Where are we in the kind of the adoption cycle?
Well, we are very early. So we are at the stage where we are the early adopter, and our collaborators. They are with us. They are, coming from different academic and hospital entities. And obviously, these early adopters, these early collaborators are going to be early adopters. They have seen our science developing in front of their eyes, using the samples from their patients for research for now, because it's just still the early stage. We're going to commercialize in the coming year, 2023. So they have been really on board and strong advocate for us. So now the next stage is going to convert, in a way, the broader clinical community, and that's what we are going to tackle in 2023, which is, guys, listen to us. But most importantly, in my mind, as I say, I was a scientist. I never listened to someone trying to sell me something. I listened to my colleagues telling me, yes, that's as good as they say. So that's when we will want our partner clinicians to be our advocate in a way and express, hey, here's what we see it working. Well, to use your word again, here's what we think it's a breakthrough. There was a big gap and they are feeling it. Give it a try to your patient. So that's going to be the big part of our expansion. One thing, if you don't mind, I want to emphasize is that going back to the word customers, another set of customers we will have to convince, and so far I'm very happy to see that they are getting on board with that, is the insurance company. Again, coming from the science side, no one wants to bother with the insurance company. No offense if there's some in the audience, but we don't want to think about money when we are scientists and we develop a solution. But that's when I fell in the on the dark side of it. Money rules a lot of things, and one important thing is that you can have the best technology, and you may have patient needed and asking for it. If no one can pay for it, this is not going to go anywhere. Cancer is not a disease of the people who can afford an out-of-pocket expensive solution. Yeah. And so with that in mind, we have our other customer is engaging the insurance company and say, hey, is that something that, well, we know with a clinician would save life, but for you, that's something you see would save money for the healthcare system. And so far, yes, there's such a screaming.
I would assume that things that are preventative early, insurance companies tend to embrace those ideas.
When it's at the right time, they don't want too early, because if it's just screening and you create false alarm, that's not something positive for an insurance, because they don't want to run follow-up tests on something that was a false alarm. They don't want too late. Stage 4 is extremely costly and deadly. So they want to bring the equation sooner in the early stage. And one of the cancers we are tackling first is lung cancer. If 75% of lung cancer right now is detected in stage 3 and stage 4, this is deadly and costly because there is some of the intervention that you can do in stage 1 or stage 2, such as surgery, which is efficient and not as costly as the chemotherapy that you have to use and rely on in stage 3 and stage 4. And so there is an advantage there to detect in stage 1 and stage 2, because this is a place when we can do something for lung cancer. We can do surgery and send back someone to their good life. If you do it too early when you can't do anything, that's not helping much.
Yeah, no, I see that. I can see that the ecosystem is evolving, that people are learning and also slowly embracing elements of this across it. But I mean, Sandrine, you have started this business at such an interesting moment, certainly right before the pandemic, and then you've developed it through the pandemic. Tell me a little bit about the process of the business and its growth in its early years.
Well, in a way, we got lucky that we didn't get that affected for the pandemic, because so we made a discovery at UC San Diego, and we spin out fully out of it in 2020. So yes, just at the beginning of the pandemic. And when we spin out, our next stage was to do clinical validation. You do clinical validation at scale. That means you need to recruit a patient and get their samples. When we were lucky is that our technology uses a very little amount of blood. It's only 500 microliter of plasma. And when I say lucky, is that it's really lucky because most of the collaborators that we have been dealing with, they all have a biorepository, meaning when you go to your clinician, you have the right to sign that you can give your sample for the leftover samples for research. And so we went to this clinician and we say, hey, we want to do for now lung cancer. Do you have samples of patients and matching controls in your biorepository? And the first question we always get in this case is that, whoa, how many milliliter are you going to need? Because we don't want to deplete our biorepository. And when you come back and you say, we need 500 microliter, they're just, oh, that's completely reasonable. And so we, unlike other liquid biopsy, we had this big advantage for us is that we could do a retrospective study using samples that were already well qualified and well identified and studied, that has been preserved by all of these scientists in biorepository. So during the big pandemic, where it was so difficult for others to recruit samples and patients, we didn't have that. We were looking at samples already banked. So that has been an advantage. And so now these cohorts is going through the review process in peer newspaper. So at some point it's going to be published. And hopefully now in our timing, our next stage is going to be doing a prospective study, but the world kind of reopen. So the timing worked kind of okay for us. I mean, like everyone else, we had to deal with it, but it was not as dramatic.
Yeah, no, I could see certainly you were able to go through that phase where you were essentially doing kind of some of the critical research, critical rollout for you to then now scale this and bring it to the broader ecosystem. And so that kind of sets up my last question perfectly, which is now here we are heading into 2023. What does the next year look like for you and the Micronoma team?
Well, it's exciting because it's going to be a growth year for us, a significant growth year. So 2022 has all been about validation, nose in the grinder, deliver. And now we are going to be in the growth. I mean, in the growth in many ways. We're going to start the year with opening, no surprise to anyone as an entrepreneur, another fundraising. So we are going to raise money to be able to support what's coming. So commercialization of our assay, of our lung cancer assay, is going to happen in 2023. Supporting data is always needed. We have great supporting data. People always want more. And that's when we were just discussing doing prospective study. That is expensive. That takes time. And so that's what we are going to start initiating as well in parallel in 2023. So that's on the lung cancer side. But we're not just working. The discovery we made, the team made and published in 2022, works on many different cancer types. We have proof of principle on 20 cancer. So we are absolutely expanding that portfolio. We already have collaboration in liver cancer, ovarian cancer, breast cancer, colorectal cancer, you name it. So it's just lung cancer is just the first step for us. And then it's what the key word is. It's a platform. What does it mean? That we can even use that knowledge beyond early cancer detection and go into companion diagnostic, for example. And so all of that is going to start being initiating in 2023. So it's a very exciting year for us.
Yeah, I just love the cycle that you're outlining. It seems to me, and maybe you can shed light if I'm right, this process that I'd say companies like yours in the biomedical space are able to evolve and move forward now, it seems at an accelerated pace. You know, it's quite exciting. And I certainly think it will bear fruit for all of us in the near future. And Sandrine, we all hope that you help us find a way to resolve the challenges that we have with cancer. Sandrine, if someone wanted to learn more about what you and the team at Micronoma are working on, where's the best place to get in touch with you?
Well, I think our website is a good repository of information, micronoma.com. We share our publication, we share our blogs, which are not peer-reviewed, but our view of how we can use our technology to improve and why we are going at it this way in our stepwise matter. So I would start there. There is a contact us in 2023. We are going to start having a newsletter to update more. So sign up for that so that you can be on our mailing list when the newsletters start appearing.
Well, listen, Sandrine, thank you so much for being on Uncaged today. We've been speaking with Sandrine Miller-Montgomery. She is the president and CEO at Micronoma, which is an early cancer detection using microbiome-driven liquid biopsy. We've been talking about how the business has evolved from the research stage to the testing and rollout stage to now linking in with the key ecosystem that the organization is going to need to scale this and to bring these powerful solutions to market. Sandrine, thank you so much for being on Uncaged. For those that are out there, please like and subscribe to the show. And we look forward to having you back, Sandrine.
Thank you very much, Brent.
Cheers.